pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Call the village board meeting for November 15th, special meeting. Order, roll call. Mr. Offel. Yes, sir. Mr. Carmel. Here. Mr. Shays. Here. Mr. LeBeer. Here. I am here. Entertain a motion to dispense with the regular agenda for the purpose of conducting a special meeting jointly with the Business Development Corporation and the Town Council. Second. Mr. Offel, second by Mr. Carmel. Discussion. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries.
I'm not going to say near as much. I'd like to call over a special meeting of the Massena Town Council. We have the agenda. Move on with that.
Motion. Second.
On behalf of the Business Development Corp, as acting vice president, I officially call our meeting to order at 5:32 to discuss the joint meeting topic.
Thank you. So there was some discussions a week and a half ago, a little over a week ago. Town had some concerns, so I guess we're going to throw it to you guys and let you open up, tell you what your concerns are. Tell us what your concerns are.
Well, our concerns were that we weren't aware of a lot of things that the BDC were purporting to be true.
Can you expand on that?
The new director of the BDC, the community developer, was going to report to the mayor. No.
I wasn't aware of that.
Neither were we.
The meeting we had, you had mentioned that the mayor was going to be supervising the developer plan.
I mentioned it?
Yeah.
I think you're severely mistaken. Do anyone recall that conversation?
You were there, Melvin? You recall that? Huh?
I think I was there too, right? Before this meeting?
No,
No, this
he's
is,
referring to the October 15th, I think, meeting. It was the mayor, myself, Sam, Melanie, Ron, Jeff, and Dan.
I was under the impression that's what you were referring to, that the developer would report to the mayor.
No, it's
Yes.
unfortunate you didn't ask for clarification if that's what you thought.
Well, it was pretty clear when it came out of your mouth. I mean, that's what I had heard, so.
Just polling everyone that was there, did anyone else get that impression by something I said?
So here's where I think that we are, and if anybody disagrees with me, jump in. We have gone around in circles from where this started a couple of years ago to where we landed about a few months ago before the search commenced. The Business Development Corporation stays in place. Their mission is modified, where community development is more of a priority, but economic development is still a piece of it. They would interview, hire the director position. The director would answer to the Business Development Corporation. There would be strong coordination between the supervisor's office, the mayor's office, and the business development, so that we were all pushing and pulling in the same direction. Those words I remember saying that night at that last meeting.
And I
Coordination of the three.
And I specifically recall the candidates all asking during the interview process who they would be reporting to. And I specifically recall Mr. Pease specifically stating the BDC board.
So I'm talking about a different meeting then, because Tim wasn't at that meeting.
I can't explain what you think you heard that no one else heard. It's unfortunate that that wasn't asked for clarification or brought up sooner.
Well, it was. I thought after a meeting, that meeting actually, or before that meeting, I believe the supervisor and the mayor had a meeting. So I went to the supervisor and asked clarification on your meeting. I think that's maybe where things kind of got.
And when was this?
Well, regardless, let's just move forward. Are there any concerns that we have now?
So how is the coordinated effort going to be between the village and the town and the developer? How is that going to work? Are you going to get a hold of the BDC to coordinate, and then they go through the developer, or are you gonna do that directly?
I'm just perplexed because this was talked about at several meetings and in the interviews.
I don't think it was, not in the interviews, it wasn't.
It was absolutely
It wasn't
discussed.
really spelled out, that's why we're having this meeting now.
That's why we had the meeting on the 15th.
There was concern of who the assistant may be to the new director of that position. I do recall that being discussed, of who that, how that person would be paid or who that person would report and stuff like that. I do recall that.
The assistant?
The assistant.
That's
not
very
the-
different than the
Yeah,
developer.
yeah. I do recall.
So is that what you're confused on?
I don't think I'm confused on that, that's what I heard, but, we're on an assumption that whoever takes Avis's place will be the person that, is gonna be assisting. And we would assume that seeing Avis reports to the village, that would continue to be the case.
Correct.
Yeah.
Very different than what was just said by the supervisor.
So why don't you spell out how the plan is gonna be, Tim, or your plan anyway?
Well, it's not my plan, but it's my understanding, what we agreed upon a few weeks ago to make sure that we clarified in the joint meeting that you and Councilwoman Cunningham were at, was that the BDC would have supervision, but the gap has been the lack of coordination. The town is working on things, the village is working on things, the BDC is working on things, and we never know whether we're pushing or pulling in the same direction. So establish meetings, whether they're bi-weekly, once a month, where the supervisor or his representative, the mayor and or his representative, and the BDC's director sit down and make sure that we're doing that we're coordinating. That's my understanding of the way this was going to work. Granted, I mean, I can understand that there was some confusion along the process because there was a lot of competing views for how this should go. Where we settled on this was what I thought was a compromise. The town board didn't want the mayor supervising it. There was probably concern from our side, we didn't want just the supervisor supervising the person. So, and the big piece of this is we didn't want to lose the local development corporation, the LDC, that the BDC possesses, because there's great advantages to it. One, for example, is they can administer the grant that the theater has. They can administer like they did the core of the community program. So it made no sense to dissolve that piece. And secondly, it made no sense to lose those great minds, the people that have been dedicated and worked on this for years. So in the end, I thought this was a good compromise. We were moving, we advertised, they interviewed, they were about ready to pick somebody, and then we don't know what's going on. Which, I respect that, but, you know, I'm in my office every single day, and I spend a lot of hours there. All somebody has to do is come in. There isn't a secretary there, it isn't a locked door, walk in, ask a question, we could have resolved this. We've delayed this now for nearly 2 weeks, and we've sent a terrible message to the community of past problems that we've had between these boards, and to the people that we're trying to hire, who now probably are thinking, geez, are these people really committed to this? Do I want to leave my current job? This could have been cleared up with a simple somebody walking down to my office, or calling me and saying, what is it you guys expect? Because it was really clear in this room the Thursday in October that we met.
15th.
At least I thought, from my perspective, it was really
Well,
clear.
I think it was back then, and then we get a presentation by the BDC for their budget. And all these things are getting thrown out about, who's going to be doing what, and, we were very confused and unsure of what was going on.
So what else did the BDC present that was confusing?
Well, we were in different meetings, and he had come across when he was presenting that the village was going to be in charge of the grant writer, for instance. That the money that was set aside for that was going to be taken care of by the village. And, as far as representation or going down the hall or whatever, I mean, we can all do that, but we felt that it was better that we all get together rather than sit down and, I'm sorry to bring you out on a night before the election, but
It's not about not wanting to meet. It's about, we have a meeting of committee scheduled for the 15th for the sole purpose of hashing out concerns before interviewing. And it's not until a week later, after the town board meeting, that we hear secondhand that there's issues and concerns. It was actually the village mayor that reached out and said, it sounds like we need another meeting. So it's not that you opted just to say we want to get together and meet. There was no communication. The 15th was the most recent, and we left that meeting thinking we were good. We green-lighted those guys to interview. It wasn't until a week or two later that secondhand we hear, oh, things got confusing and out of hand at the meeting and it might not be moving forward. That you have to appreciate where the frustration comes in from.
Well, first of all, we never said that. We never said we're not moving forward. We had questions to the BDC about the budget. And, I mean, I remember getting an email from you or a text from the mayor saying, can we talk about the BDC? And, you know, I mean, it goes both ways. I'm down the hall too.
We weren't the ones with concerns.
Well, we were had concerns about the budget.
Why weren't they raised prior to the interviews at the multiple avenues?
We didn't get the budget until last week.
You didn't know the number that was going to be expected?
We didn't have the information from the BDC till last week.
So how do we resolve this? I mean, let's get to it
Move forward.
instead of pointing fingers.
Well, you just did all the finger pointing, now you want to quit pointing fingers, which is fine, I'd rather move on too.
What are your concerns? What would you like us to do? What things do you need answered? They're here, we're here, let's get to it. You're the ones that had the concern and it's silence.
So who's going to supervise the developer? That's what we're asking.
We've already answered that.
Okay,
They are.
that was a major question. The town is putting in $100,000, the village is putting $100,000. How is that divided up? How does that budget work for the BDC? $45,000 for the BDC and the developer, and $55,000 for your grant writer.
Our grant writer. That grant writer's always been available if you wanted assistance.
So you're not actually putting $100,000 into the BDC and developer, you're putting in $45,000.
We're putting $100,000 into economic improvement development.
I don't think there was any big issue with the village itself. I think that there was concern about the way the GDC budget was presented. There were questions that we had. And then from last I knew, there was an email sent from the director or the president or the chairman of the BDC that he was stopping. So I'm not sure what that was all about.
I can't speak to your individual meetings with liaisons and so on and forth like that. I think when we were presented with the budget, which was the first time that we had seen the budget, the question came up, how do you quantify what the new developer is doing? In other words, we're contributing $100,000, you're contributing $100,000. Okay, how do you quantify what they're doing with that? Are they moving forward? Realizing that there are things in economic development that are held to the best until, or somebody who's interested in coming in says, we don't want this out. Okay, I realize that happens all the time. But we would like, whether it's periodic reports, or whatever, however the system works out, this is what I've done, this is what I hope to do, this is the direction that we're going in. I think the concern wasn't with your October meeting, it was with the presentation of the BDC board, which was the first time, I'm speaking for myself, that I'd seen it. Now, having gone over it, now I understand, where they're going and that type of thing. So rather than, be confrontational between town and village, I mean, this is the way we would like to present it, the way I would like to present it.
And you hit upon a key point, the how do you know the success, and that was the catalyst behind the mayor and the supervisor having that regular meeting with he or she in the developer position.
That's essential.
So they can report back when we as trustees and councilmen and women say, what are we getting? Is it working? Is there progress? That the BDC board is working with their director, but the director is also communicating with these two so they can report back and say, yeah, just so you know, they met with so-and-so, can't say details, but there's this project, and give us more info than may be existing right now between the two groups. So it's a very valid point.
Well, we've had historically very good attendance by the village and town liaisons at our meetings. And at least monthly, and we expect that line of communication will be more open and greater under this new structure. And so we would solicit any comments, direction, prioritization from those liaisons at our meetings, as well as from the supervisor and mayor in between meetings. We're at the service of the town and village. We're funded by the town and village, and we're here to do the best job that we can as an organization for the county and the village. So we certainly are here to listen to what you folks want.
And the new structure is going to facilitate even more communication between the town, the village, and the BDC. We're moving into the town hall. You will have daily access to the developer and have the opportunity to speak with him. It doesn't need to be formalized meetings every week or two. It can be a day-to-day thing. The BDC board recognizes that there's going to be a challenge in how we structure our oversight of the director, but we're ready to accept the challenge and figure that out. Communication is going to be improved simply by having the BDC office right in the middle of the town hall.
So does the town have access to the grant writer?
The town has had access to the grant writer.
And what is our conduit for accessing the grant writer? Is that through Monique? Is it through the, going to be through the BDC? The
I have
developer?
emails that you were all involved, you are on, from the supervisor regarding the museum with our grant writer, direct access to our grant writer. It hasn't changed. I can't count the number of times I have said that the town has access to our grant writer.
So what would the method be? Is that directly to the grant writer? Or would that be through the BDC or the developer? Or how will that work?
Not through the BDC. We will assist the grant writer, but we have no supervisory role.
But I think it's important to understand the process. And Councilman Miller knows this more than anybody on the town board, because he's on a couple committees where we use the grant writers. It's a strategic development model. We just don't write grants, send a bunch of stuff and say write grants. We come up with concept, ideas, projects. We flush them out locally. We then reach out to the strategic development team. They tell us what's available. If we don't know what's available for current grants, they tell us what looks to be a good match and what doesn't. And if they say it's not a good match, we don't waste time because they're professionals. And if it's a good match, then they proceed and they start writing. We then do most of the work as far as gathering information locally for them. They do the writing, they put it together. A lot of it they already have because many grants are similar. But it takes a lot of work locally. That we end up feeding them information to write a successful grant application. And then once it's submitted, there's a whole process that goes along after that. It's not just a matter of saying, write this grant, because it doesn't work that way. Are we okay where we are with the concept? And I think we've recognized throughout this process there's going to be some growing pains. We've asked the BDC to change their model. So they probably have a lot of questions on how this is going to go. We all do, and we think, as has been stated, more routine meetings should alleviate that, and we may have to adjust on the fly and say these portions of it aren't working, let's make some adjustments to ensure that we're going in the right direction and that we're all pushing and pulling in the same directions.
I guess I'll say this, is that I think the town board needs to sit down with the grant writer, have them sit with us, or whatever, two of us go down there and meet with them or something, just so we get familiarity with that company. I know they're in Syracuse area. I'm sure we can come up with a list of things that we need grant money for, but I'm sure they're thinking they work for you, and so there's been a little bit of skepticism from the town board. So I think that maybe the town board should get an opportunity to meet with their team and sit down and discuss them and talk to them and see how they would like us to present them grants that the town needs money for, or projects that we want to push forward. And I think that would help us have an avenue to them. I don't know how you guys, I know you guys do lots of emails, but we've just never sat down with their team.
Yeah, I mean, we would, it's a good point, Tom. I don't think any of this really knew, other than having an email address to send to. We weren't even aware that we had to go do most of the legwork. We submitted a couple of applications, or asked them to submit a couple of applications. I don't think we've had any success out of anything that we utilize them with. So, yeah, I would like to find out the process and see what's required from us. I'm sure it's a good asset, and we really like to utilize it. We haven't really understood what we need to do yet.
Not that it's anybody's fault.
I've got my answer. I'm good with it. I'm ready to move. As long as we can get a meeting with them, and then I think for my one voice here, that would be good.
Does your
Well,
acquiescence mean that you can't make a decision until you sit down and meet with the strategic development?
Oh, no. Absolutely.
No,
That's why I said I'm ready. I'm good to move. I just would like to meet with the grant team or the strategic team as soon as we could. I mean, probably after the holidays, obviously. But,
And we had put in the budget $100,000 for our share of new development. And is there another problem? We had none. So, I don't know, is there a reason why it hasn't proceeded forward?
Maybe that has to be, are they ever concerned about the commitment? Whether, I'm not going to speak for the BDC, but it appeared that they were concerned about whether there was commitment to proceed.
There was a clear communication during the budget meeting that the town was not willing to accept this situation as it was presented. We had reason to believe that we lacked the financial support to move forward with hiring an executive director.
We agreed to the $100,000, the budget's in Pam's office.
It's on the
It's
internet.
not approved yet, but,
yeah, but beyond,
presumably
I think
we'll-
what Dan's saying is beyond the monetary, yes, you're right, beyond the monetary commitment, which you all said yes to in the meeting, there were obviously other questions that you've already brought up, we've already addressed, so we just wanted to make sure while we were in the midst of hiring someone, that we were clear to them.
We've been funding the VDC for how long now? And continued to, right? We actually increased to make up for
They
the.
stopped 6 months ago.
Yeah, but we talked about that too.
That's a big other.
We never had a conversation with the town about that. We just stopped sending the checks.
Well, I didn't talk to you. We did talk. But for the ongoing year, we committed to $100,000.
When does that start from the town's perspective?
January 1.
you guys concerns or questions lingering from your point of view?
Only if we've got candidates for employment left still out there, we have to see.
I know, speaking for myself, that after the budget hearing, when it was presented, the BDC's portion, there were questions as to moving forward in the middle of the interview process, because you're at the point of hiring an individual, and at the same time, there were questions from our end as to who actually is going to oversee this individual. And you put them in, to put it into perspective, I didn't feel it was fair to offer somebody employment that we really didn't understand. Today it's clarified that from my position, because there did seem to be questions after we got done with our meeting with you as to what was going to happen, because you didn't know about the village's portion of the grant writer, had it 100,000, and there were just open things from it. I couldn't feasibly say, yeah, let's go ahead and offer somebody a job without knowing who was going to oversee them and what it was going to entail. I mean, each of these individuals that I saw that were being interviewed are leaving other jobs that they currently have. They're already employed, some of them with good benefits, that were willing to step up and possibly leave, and to come to, now that I understand that, I can answer that easy.
You're going to BDC, what we'll see.
I'm sorry?
Are you going to proceed now? I mean, there was an email or something, or letter that you were suspended.
We suspended employment search, yes. Well, yes, we'll see if these candidates are still willing or whether we need to reopen.
I'm good.
Would we want to go to executive session with BBC to discuss contracts? I think it's necessary to get that done.
I didn't hear that.
For the town and the BDC to go in executive session to discuss a contract with them.
So, before we do that, can we talk about the grant quickly? Citizens committee, I think there was concerns at your last meeting about that too.
Well, it was just the motion that was passed included in it that there be a town councilman that be on that.
You think it's healthy to have elected officials on the citizens committee?
I'm sorry.
Do you think it's a healthy move? It's good for the overall operation of the committee to have elected officials on it?
We did. We voted.
How many people do you think should be on the committee? It's varied. I mean, the various studies we've looked at, it varies from a small group to a significant group. So. My position has been that we shouldn't have elects on there, but if you're going to have an elected official representing the town, then we're going to have to put one of our people on there. You know, and who you put on there, I think, matters. If you put on somebody who's clearly publicly stated they favor one position over another, that's not an open-minded position going in. Which is why I felt it's imperative that current sitting elected officials don't sit on that organization. But if you want to do that, that's fine. It's your purview to put who you want to represent the town.
Thank you. But I think we were thinking around 7. I personally had wanted to keep it rather small as we could. Make it viable and work and make it less difficult to get people together. We never specified that.
Yeah, I never specified either that I was in favor or not in favor of either, but you're alluding
Did you at the
to.
last meeting say that you've looked at the studies?
I looked at, yes, all three of the studies.
You didn't state a position?
I stated that the village and the town hasn't changed. I know outside the village and town, we lost a lot of jobs and everything else, but your services are the same. And Frank agreed with me, and shaking his head. You have the same type of trucks, we have different type of trucks. I mean, you can't commingle those. I mean, yes, I did read the studies.
And you don't think anything's going to be different this time?
I said there might be something that we can save money on. That's why, and there was a lot of work put into getting this together, and there may be something we can save money on, so we should proceed with that study.
I sat on the one in 1990, and there was preconceived from just about everybody on that committee before they even started it, that they were going to consolidate regardless of what it looked like on paper, because they could prove that it was effective by laying off 2 people. That was the conclusion at the very beginning of the study, but a lot of those that sat on that study. That's why, and most of those people that were on that study were ex-politicians. I think for myself, personally, I've been gone through that one time and seen how it operates, is to get us completely away from that. Then when it gets all done, nobody can say, well, you went in there and you want it this way or you want it that way. Get some people in there that have no preconceived one way or the other, what do they want to do. Let the facts determine what's going to be the outcome. But don't go in there first and say, I want to find these facts to prove my point. If you're going in on that, you might as well not do the study, because it's a waste of time and it's a waste of money. But go in there with a group of people, hopefully, that are completely open-minded, can look at everything, doesn't care whether the village board is eliminated, whatever. Let that be. I definitely don't want to sit on it. Because no matter how the outcome is, it'll be looked at as, I'm the bad guy. I wanted to do this or I wanted to do that. Get people on there that don't have anything, don't have a dog in the hunt.
I think you're going to be hard pressed to find somebody that doesn't have preconceived notions about it.
I think there's a lot of people out there.
You've got to look. And I don't think it's detrimental to have somebody that's close in the government to provide support or input. I mean, the studies that was done in '98, I think everybody that was on that committee felt, like you said, that they were going to dissolve the village. But then when they got done, they found out that they really didn't make sense back then. You know, it's been 20 years since there's been a study done. There's certainly a chance for things to change, and I think that we should do it, but that was the motion that was passed last week.
I see we transitioned from the BBC to consolidation. A number of studies have been commissioned, and they've all come out the same way. And I don't know if anything major has changed. There's still those hurdles that existed back when the last study was done. The hurdles still remain. I don't know what direction it would take. I know what direction it's taken 3 times.
The RFP that was sent to us for consideration was a dissolution of the village and any other possible cost saving. And then the grant application says something, but it looks totally different than dissolution of the village. What's the intent?
The Craig grant deliverables has to be approved by the Department of State, and was. Identify and develop existing conditions analysis of village and town governments, the services provided, and associated costs. 2, develop a dissolution plan that will identify how village services will be continued should village government be dissolved, the fiscal and non-fiscal advantages and disadvantages of dissolution, and the orderly process for the disposition of the village assets and liabilities should village government be dissolved. 3, develop alternatives to dissolution should the village not be dissolved, including the fiscal and non-fiscal advantages and disadvantages of maintaining a village government, which may include equitable cost-sharing agreements. Now, the RSC, which is the Reorganization Study Committee, the Citizens Committee, the committee will also be responsible for developing a reorganizational implementation plan as a possible next step to carrying out the recommended consolidation and/or dissolution. A reorganization study will form the foundation for developing a reorganizational plan and alternatives to local reorganization, such as additional shared consolidated services, restructuring, delivery of services, and other viable options. Those are the deliverables from the grant, have to be approved step by step with the Department of State as it goes forward.
Mayor, is it my understanding this committee has to be in place before the RFP goes out because they're the ones that choose this?
They make the recommendation to the governing bodies, yeah. The Citizens Committee doesn't make any decision. The decision to dissolve the village solely rests with the village board. If an alternative plan is presented by that committee, it rests with the member. If some other form of reorganization is recommended, then it would the governing bodies that are affected would make that decision.
Decision to put it to a vote, so the residents of the village?
It could, or it's an
Or to
alternative.
proceed with it, you're saying? The village board would decide to proceed with any of those actions if they choose to.
Are you asking, does it go to public referendum?
Yeah.
That's an option. We could vote right now to dissolve the village. And then the articles of the law for that immediately go into effect. That's an option.
Would it go to a public referendum if there was a petition? So,
That's correct. And that's the whole purpose of the study. So we have good data to look at and consider. I would disagree with anyone that says the landscape hasn't changed. We have lost a third of our population in this community. A third of our population. We have lost 2 industrial plants, hundreds and hundreds of jobs, middle-class jobs. So the suggestion that nothing has changed.
I said nothing, I meant nothing has changed between the village services and the town services. Okay, that's what I had said. If you listen to the meeting that John had taped, I said nothing has changed. We all know that we've lost jobs here. We've lost the general orders plant. We've lost a lot of jobs at Alcoa. We know we lost all these jobs. And we know that we've tried to cut costs by combining services. But the village still has smaller dump trucks that plow the streets of the village of Massena, and the town has larger trucks with wings. So obviously we cannot commingle those vehicles. It snows in the village at the same time it snows in the town, so you can't just plow the village and go out and plow
How
the
does
town.
that change? I don't understand that argument.
What do you mean?
That's not going to change.
I know it's not going to change. So how are you going to save money or change for that? That's what I'm saying. Anything that has changed, like you're sharing
That's precisely why we need a study, Mr. Carbone. Precisely why we need an independent study to tell us.
Exactly, and that's why I
Our
agree.
expenses in the village doubled the revenue increases in the last several years. In other words, we keep taxes lower than we're spending, which means fund balance, or positions, or equipment. We cannot afford to continue at the pace we're doing. And at some point, we're going to get to a point where do we fly or jump off the cliff? But The size of plows in the village and the town have nothing to do with a reorganizational study. They're a piece of it, a minor piece of it. You're still gonna have to plow the roads that are currently in the township. You're still gonna have to plow.
But then you're also gonna have to provide police services to the entire town, right? Unless there's a special district made up, which has to be done by the state government, correct?
Sam, what's the apprehension to have a committee come by and answer all these questions that you have and everybody else does? I mean, you're not just peeling back the onion and coming up with this stuff.
Oh, no, I was here for the presentation for the Department of State.
So, exactly, so have them come and tell us whether it's a good idea.
I would love to see that. I would love to see if there's something we can save money on.
Okay.
But to just dissolve the village because they're running out of money?
Who said that?
You just said that. You just said your services are very well. Your services are the same, and you're taking from the fund balance, correct?
I said three things. Or we eliminate positions, or we don't buy equipment. Which is decisions I get faced every year I make a budget, and they have to do it. I'm sure it's the same thing for you guys. You're parsing words. You have a position, that's fine. If your board wants you on there, that's great. Welcome. But it's going to force us to do the same thing.
Okay.
So are we thinking 7 people? 3 appointed by the village, 3 appointed by the town, 1 jointly?
No more than
5.
7. It'll be a cluster if there's any more than 7.
If you have an elected officials, you have to go with 7 instead of 5 though, because otherwise, why not just make it a committee of these 2 boards? It's supposed to be a citizens committee.
Members of this board are citizens.
With their own points of views,
Everybody got their point.
not gonna argue.
But not a vested interest.
Ask the general public what they think of citizens.
So what do you mean by that, Tim?
That's
How vested interest?
If I sit on the board and I'm against dissolution, then it would be really simple for a citizen to go, well,
I
of
have no
course he
say in
voted
that.
that way.
I don't live in the village. I have no say whether you're gonna, if it goes to a public referendum. I have property in the village as much as I have in the town.
So let me try to finish my answer. So a citizen can look at that and say, Tim Courier voted against dissolution because that means his job.
So, 7? Anybody against it?
I think we're fine with 7.
I can't wait to see you try and find a joint for this.
Yeah. What's that?
Boom, boom, boom.
I have 5 people that won't sit on that. All right.
Wait. Motion for us to adjourn.
You're going to executive session?
And there's a motion here, but it hasn't been seconded.
You don't need us.
We don't.
Motion
Should we
to-
hang around in case something changes? I don't want to come back here again. We're here. I think maybe we could ask.
It has nothing to do with the developer.
Tim, maybe we could ask, to get it on the record, that nothing's going to change from what we agreed to the last 45 minutes is the way we.
So nothing's going to change.
Not with the developer.
Okay. Motion to adjourn the
So
business.
moved.
Mr. Alpha? Second by Mr. Carl. Discussion? All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you, everyone.